Hailing frequencies open. Welcome back to Trek Retrek here on Geek the F Out. I'm Captain Johnny.
And I'm Ensign Kayla.
And I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell. I just thought of that at the last minute. You gotta throw in a little walking. We're here to talk about the immunity syndrome. Getting fever.
I feel like that. Yeah. I feel like that accent would have worked better for last episode, though.
Probably.
Hey, I'm walking here.
What? Hey, oh. It reminds me.
Walking.
It was right around the time that when I worked at one of the local pizza places, we had a picture of Christopher Walken on the door to the walk-in freezer. Mm-hmm. And it was last year or the year before that the Sopranos movie came out. And I don't remember where I was in my house, but I was near a window, and just from outside, I just hear a kid go, "Hey, I'm walking here." I'm like, someone's been watching Sopranos who probably shouldn't be.
Yeah. Child. Anyways, hello, everyone.
Yes. Tangent time.
Tangent time. Starting off with a tangent right off the bat. Welcome to Trek Retrek.
This is for season 2, episode 18. Remember at the end of last episode, we read I can talk, I promise. We read IMDb's.
Can you?
And you said it was a little spoilerly. Well, here's tvguide.com. Spoiler. The Enterprise becomes an antibody to penetrate an energy-draining invader resembling a giant amoeba that has annihilated a star system and is about to reproduce.
They literally gave it away, and also they use penetrate. Not a good enough reason to use the word penetrate. There is so much penetration in this episode. There is so much thrusting. Like, how this was allowed to be on TV, I don't know. I truly don't know.
We'll circle back to that.
Yes. Oh, the fuck we will. All right, so it is time for some rest and recreation for the Enterprise. Psych. Uhura's got some very long sideburns in this episode. That is my first observation. They were like 2 here on her cheeks.
I didn't even notice.
But yeah, suddenly Spock realizes that the Intrepid ship has died and that 400 Vulcans have died too. And Kirk orders Spock to sickbay because he's like, how the fuck does this dude know that? And Kirk is ordered to look into the Intrepid, and Chekhov says the whole system is fucking dead. Dun, dun, dun. Dun. So yeah, no rest and recreation for them.
Nope, get fucked.
Of course not. Yeah, get fucked. So the Enterprise comes comes up to basically a black blob in space, as I call it. Oh no, wait. First, we have in sickbay, Bones questions how Spock knows how the Intrepid is gone, and Spock actually gives like a very kind of not philosophical, but very kind of deep response. Saying how he's like, oh, humans are so concerned about like just one person, but don't seem to care about like a lot of people, essentially. Whereas like, Vulcans, we may seem like I forgot the adjective he used,
heartless.
But like heartless. But that's essentially not the case. And he's like, you guys could have used some of what we have, and it would have been a lot less bloody for y'all, essentially. But yeah, anyways, so
yeah, I wrote, damn, not wrong.
Yeah.
He's not wrong.
He's not. I'm not phrasing it exactly as he did, but it was like along those lines. So yeah, the Enterprise comes upon a black blob in space, which is what I'm calling it. They aren't able to analyze it, but it's the same thing that was in line with the Intrepid and that solar system it was in. And so they launch a probe, LOL, which gives out a high-pitched frequency, making Uhura and half the crew faint. And Bones says that they're all nervous, weak, and irritable, which I was like, the irritable part's interesting.
Pretty normal.
To me.
No, it's not. We've seen irritated Kirk more than once, though, but he's back in this episode.
But like the fact that like fainting would make you irritable, unless it was just not related to the fainting, it was just like another symptom of the high frequency. So yeah, Kirk gets mad at Spock for not having any info on the blob. The only thing he knows is that it is some sort of energy. Wonder if that is what killed the solar system / the Intrepid. Meanwhile, Kirk is clearly feeling the effects of that high-pitched frequency, and they're about to phaser the blob when they hear the high-pitched sound again, and all of a sudden the stars are gone, which I was like, okay, so they're like inside the blob now, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Which they don't figure out.
Right. Like, Chekhov's like, what happened to the stars? I literally wrote down, you're in the fucking cloud, you dumbass. Like, they're all like, where did the stars go? I'm like, oh, I don't know. It was blotting out the stars when you saw it on the view screen.
2
and you were
plus 2 equals 4. Oh, that was 2 doubloons. God damn it.
Yeah, like, it was on a viewer and it was blotting out the stars, and you are going towards it. So, common sense.
Yeah.
You dumbass.
Yeah. You would think Spock would at least know that, but I guess not. So, Scotty says the deflectors are down 5%, and Bones comes on the bridge and gives everyone a stimulant and says that 2/3 of the crew is out, which I'm like, who the fuck is running the ship if 2/3 of the crew is out? That's insane. And Spock says they've entered the zone of energy that is growing stronger and stronger. Meanwhile, the Enterprise is growing weaker, which I'm like, yeah, you're in the black blob. Come on, get it together. And Kirk puts a message out to the whole ship to continue working to investigate. They're not going to give up, even though, you know, Bones is like, we just need to survive right now. And Bones... Go ahead.
I was kind of surprised at how stubborn Kirk was about staying and figuring out what was going on, considering like his mission is supposed to be, even though he was ordered to investigate, like his mission is supposed to be to protect his ship and crew above all else. Like it wasn't like, maybe we don't know the extent of his orders, but I didn't think it was like go do this no matter the cost. Yeah. I like half this episode, I'm like, just fucking
They
leave.
literally said it was a rescue mission, even though we know they're already dead. But
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, that seemed a little off to me as well. So yeah, Bones messages Kirk and says, according to the monitors, they're actually all dying, so they're fucked. And so Kirk goes down to the engine room and everything seems to be malfunctioning and kind of doing the opposite. And they start to be pulled towards the darkness, but when they put on the reverse, they start going forward. So they do the opposite, as Spock suggests, and they start thrusting to go forward. And they actually go backwards. And Bones says the further that they go into the darkness, the weaker they become. And yeah, so Scotty says, yeah, everything is backwards there. The power is still draining. Meanwhile, Spock suggests that this, like, energy pretty much drains everything, biological or not, of energy. And Kirk thinks that one massive thrust forward might get them out of there. Meanwhile, Spock says the Vulcans on the Intrepid probably didn't know they were dying because nothing has conquered them in a long time, so they like weren't suspecting that, like, you know, something's killing them, which I was like, I guess, but I don't know, if everyone seems to be like getting weaker and weaker, wouldn't you have like some concern that something's happening to you, and I don't know, there might not be anything left of you at some point? Like, you might die?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Crazy idea. Anywho, so they apply the one giant thrust and everyone goes flying around, but of course it doesn't work. and they're still losing power, and they only have 2 hours left of power. And then all of a sudden this weird colored blob that kind of also looks like a fish thing starts coming towards them. And Spock says it's the source of the energy drain, which at this point I was like, so the blackness was, or the darkness was like kind of its shield, and then behind it, I don't know. I was kind of confused by that. So yeah, they launch a probe at it, and it's a big jelly living thing. They find out a big ol' jelly thing.
Big old space amoeba.
And he says it's a single-celled organism, and it's probably eating the energy, and it's basically a virus. So they're like, well, fuck. So this is when Bones volunteers to take a shuttle to study it better, but Kirk doesn't like the idea, and Spock, of course, also volunteers to do the same thing. And Kirk is really torn on who should go, and he makes this whole log, like very, very dramatic log of debating who's better to go. It's like, one's my friend, but like he's qualified and he's qualified, but he ends up choosing Spock. And so Bones takes Spock to the shuttlecraft, and Spock tells him to wish him luck, which he says, like, after Spock leaves and goes on the shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
Which I was like, you should have just fucking said it. Like, suck up your pride and fucking say it, bro. And Spock says, you know, he starts to penetrate the amoeba, and Spock says Bones would not have survived it and is moving towards the nucleus of it. And then he transmits the chromosome info back to them and says it's about to reproduce when they lose contact. Of course.
Of course.
Of course. No surprise. Take a drink every time they lose communication. Kirk says they have to destroy it before it multiplies and destroys the whole universe. And they kind of get this like partial message from Spock, who says it needs to be destroyed from the inside of the organism. And Bones and Kirk talk, and Kirk has an idea and tells Scotty to divert power on his signal. And the Enterprise enters the cell body, it penetrates it, and Kirk says they have to use antimatter to destroy it since everything is in reverse. And they find out Spock is still alive and making a log saying he sees the Enterprise and what it's doing and gives everything he has over to the Enterprise if he dies. Meanwhile, Kirk is making a similar log, giving all accommodations to his crew, which I was like, okay, like, you're saying your crew did this great job, but like, you know, maybe you should also kind of do a will at the same time, Kirk. And they launch the probe with the antimatter into the nucleus, and Kirk tells them to go out the way they came, when suddenly the shuttlecraft shows up, and Kirk's like, no, we gotta tractor beam it in. And they're like, no, we don't have enough time. But of course they do.
Of course they do.
And, huh?
I said, of course they do.
Yeah, of course they do. And of course they make it out of the cell just in time, and the blob is destroyed, and they can see stars again, and luckily Spock makes it out. He's still being dragged, and they finally chart a course to get some rest. And that is the episode. The end. They all make it out alive, to no one's surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting conundrum for Kirk, but I mean, we all know whoever he sends is not gonna die.
Yeah, they got that good old plot armor.
And sending
this isn't
Spock,
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, sending Spock makes sense because like Spock is not going to blame Kirk for selecting him. Like, he's not gonna blame him for sending him to his death. I don't know that McCoy
Bones
would either,
volunteered
but yeah.
too. So he shouldn't blame him technically because he volunteered.
Yeah.
Although I could still kind of see that happening because Bones is a funny one.
Bones is an emotional person.
Yes. He really is. But yeah, so that was an episode. It kind of reminded me of the giant fleshlight episode. What was that one?
The Doomsday Machine.
Doomsday Machine. Like similar, where they have to go in and destroy it from the inside.
Yeah,
they have to penetrate it.
There's an interesting concept. They don't really know what
it is.
Yeah, with it maybe being a space virus that's invading their galaxy. That was kind of a neat
but doesn't
thought.
know that it's doing that. It's just living.
It's just doing its thing.
Essentially. Yeah, and it's a single cell, and it's not like it's like attacking them. You know, it's trying to just eat its energy.
Yep. Anyway, yeah, I don't have a lot of anything else to say about it. Like, that's about it.
Yeah, I enjoyed this plot, especially compared to last episode. There was a lot less back and forth. Like, there was some back and forth in regards to the probes and the penetration and the thrusting and the reversing and the forward and the reversing and the forward.
There were parts that dragged on for sure.
Yeah, but not too bad. Overall, pretty good. Should we go into lines and moments?
Sure, if you have some. I don't have anything particular written down.
I have a couple. I will say when Spock is like, any suggestions? And Bones is like, I have one. Survival. Like, so dramatic. Mm-hmm. And then...
I mean, in that case, I agreed with him, too. I'm like, yeah, turn the fuck around.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the end, when Spock doesn't like their idea of rescuing him, and Bones is like, shut up, Spock, we're rescuing you. And Spock is like, oh, thank you, Captain McCoy.
Yeah.
That was funny.
The Spock line earlier was, you find it easier to understand the death of one than the death of a million. You speak about the objective hardness of the Vulcan heart, yet how little room there seems to be in yours. And then the other one that he said later that I was like, he's not wrong, is when McCoy says, suffer the death of thy neighbor, eh, Spock? You wouldn't wish that on us, would you? And Spock says, it might have rendered your history a bit less bloody.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Yeah. Not wrong, as we say.
Plus, I don't have many other favorite lines and moments because they're all in the fucking that's what they say.
Yeah. Once again, lots of thrusting, lots of penetration.
So,
yeah, that's great.
If you don't have anything else, then that'll bring us to That's What They Said. And since you went first last time, I'll start us off. Penetration of the zone in 1 minute.
I suggest we apply forward thrust.
I don't know how long we can keep this up.
Keep applying thrust.
One massive thrust forward.
Maintain thrust, Scotty.
I'm ready to try it when you are, sir.
All right, Scotty, let's get on with it.
We can maintain thrust for another hour and 15 minutes.
When do you estimate penetration?
The area of penetration will no doubt be sensitive.
We can't last more than 45 minutes. Yay! Those are your That's What They Said for season 2, episode 18, the immunity syndrome. And someone was a little weird about them, but okay. Whatever. Keep your thoughts over there, sir.
This made up for the quickie last time.
Yes. Yeah, there were a lot. There were probably more, but like it was just more thrusting and penetration, and I felt like there was already a lot, so
yeah.
That line taken out of context.
That will take us to episode trivia from Memory Alpha. This episode was the last time Kirk's green wraparound tunic was used as far as production order. The last time viewers would see it would be in the episode Bread and Circuses, since this episode aired first. But there's only one more episode with his wraparound, which I feel like is his iconic. He wears it, I feel like, more than, maybe not more. It's more noticeable when he wears it, though. Like,
yeah.
Than when he wears the gold shirt.
Yeah, in this episode where I noticed Bones' shirt was very shiny and his sleeves were like a little longer.
Yeah, that's his medical tunic, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think it said
very shiny.
I didn't include it, but since you mentioned it, this is the sole episode in which McCoy wears only his medical tunic and not his regular uniform top. Like, usually he has both.
So
like, he has the tunic on over the uniform shirt, but this time he's just wearing the tunic. Maybe because he was dealing with
so many people all the time.
Yeah. This is also the last time we see the interior of a shuttlecraft in the series. It is completely redesigned since its previous appearances, which can be explained by Kirk's line about sending in a specially equipped shuttlecraft. The equipment included computer banks that were previously seen in Starbase Operations Room in the Menagerie Part 1 and the Emenian War Room in A Taste of Armageddon.
Taste.
Spock explains in this... You want a taste? Spock explains in this episode that Vulcan was never conquered. However, in The Conscience of the King, McCoy says, "Now I know why they were conquered," in response to Spock's refusal to drink alcohol. This might be explained by Vulcan never having been conquered, but one or more of their colonies having been annexed by another power at some point. Nitpickers. Star Trek nitpickers.
Yeah. You're really...
And that's it.
Fascinating.
So that will bring us to spoilers without context. And since I went first for That's What They Said, we'll bring Ensign Kayla's spoilers without context up on the screen.
Yes. I had to use the infamous line from Pitch Perfect where Rebel Wilson's character says, "Not a good enough reason to use the word penetrate," because, yeah, there's a lot of the word penetration in this episode that was very unnecessary. And then once again, a lot of thrusting, so I had to do Elvis doing a good old pelvic thrust. And then if anyone's seen Three Body Problem on Netflix, really, we're almost done.
Power through.
The night sky, spoiler alert, but like it flickers at one point so you can't see stars. So that's from that scene. And then I just looked up fainting, like dramatic fainting, and found this lady. I was like, perfect, because you know they were all fainting all over the ship. So yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So we will bring my spoilers without context up on the screen. I had to use the confused Travolta because of their idiocy when they flew into the cloud and were like, what happened to the stars? The parts of a cell. That's self-explanatory.
Yep. I almost did that too.
What I think when I hear the word penetration. The green sliver is the action or process of making a way through or into something. The red section is... and then Archer and phrasing, because there was a lot of phrasing in this episode.
There's a lot of thrusting and penetration, once again.
Indeed. There you go.
Could never get away with that today.
It was egregious.
Pretty good. Unless you're like doing it on purpose to like make it funny. But if you're trying to be serious, then probably not.
Yeah, when Spock was like, the area of penetration will no doubt be sensitive.
Yeah. I was like, why? What? Dead.
All right. Well, before we rank the episode, Ensign Kayla, why don't you tell the crew where to find us?
on the internet.
That works.
You can find us on social media at GTFO channel. Mostly post on Instagram, saying stuff that we have coming up, announcing live streams, or just, posting funny memes and stories. You can message us on there, or you can email us, and our email is channelgtfo@gmail.com. It is the reverse of our social media handle. And yeah, make sure to smack that like, smack that subscribe, and smack that bell icon. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate it. And yeah.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. So, and to Kayla, how do you rank the immunity syndrome?
I am going to give it a commander. I liked the plot, to the extent of like them not knowing what it is, and all of their lives are at stake. I think we've talked about this before, but when there's like high stakes, I definitely like that. That like pressure, even though they have plot armor, so obviously they're probably gonna survive. Like it wasn't quite as like on the edge of your seat as the fleshlight one.
Yeah, the Doomsday Machine. Yeah,
Doomsday.
I'm with you there. I felt Doomsday Machine did a better job of having that tension, even though we knew Kirk wasn't gonna.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, and like Spock, wondering if he's gonna die, which we knew he probably wasn't. And some good like deep moments, especially with Spock, and then learning about more of his like connection with other Vulcans. So it was overall pretty good. Could have been better, so that's why I gave it commander. And also just like you don't absolutely have to watch it, but it's still a good like episode of Star Trek for sure. Yeah, you've got me second guessing, because I was gonna say Lieutenant. You got me second guessing a little bit, but I think I'm gonna stick with Lieutenant, just because when I was watching it, I was the part I was most drawn into, oddly enough, was when Spock was in the shuttlecraft, like when they launched the shuttlecraft and he's talking back and forth with the Enterprise and like telling them what he's seeing. The rest of the episode I had a hard time like getting into, especially after like it felt like it dragged in spots, and I think I was frustrated with like not a good enough explanation for why they didn't just get the fuck out of there. But all your points are sound. There's good development for Spock and Vulcans. There's a little bit of good like debate between McCoy and Spock about the nature of mourning deaths, like the feeling more for one death than millions. So there's some interesting stuff in there. That. I didn't find it as watchable myself, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Fair. So with that, our next episode will be A Private Little War. Peaceful primitive peoples, IMDb.com says, peaceful primitive peoples get caught up in the struggle between superpowers, with Kirk unhappily trying to restore the balance of power disrupted by the Klingons. They're back, baby. They're
Indeed.
Back. All right. Well, until then, peace and long life, y'all.
Live long and prosper. Cadet Bassett says goodbye.
Yes.